into the driver's seat and they squealed out of the parking lot. Andrew glanced over his shoulder and prayed he'd done the right thing for all of them. Chapter 6. As far as luxury penthouse suites were concerned, the one Andrew found himself inhabiting left a lot to be desired. Not that it was the suite's fault. Meyerson wasn't crawling with enough wealthy folks to merit the investment in hotels fancy enough to make it into Architectural Digest, or whatever magazine served the folks who could afford fancy spreads. Acknowledging that he was in a huff, Andrew took advantage of the one amenity of the suite he couldn't resist. A small balcony, just big enough for a single lounge chair and side table, lay on the other side of slightly tinted sliding glass doors. The view of the San Francisco peak took Andrew's breath away and helped him forget that he was here under less than ideal circumstances. Since their arrival the day before, Caleb had hunkered down with his father and their guards. None of them had needed Andrew's input, so he sat outside and worked on his puzzle book. The silent treatment was wearing on his nerves, though. Andrew had a million questions, but every time he walked into the suite, they clammed up. Not a word was spoken until Andrew went back outside and shut the door. He had no idea why they had even bothered to bring him along. The night before, when Andrew had yawned so hard his jaw cracked and drew their attention, Caleb had shuffled him into one of the two bedrooms of the suite, the one with the king-size bed. Andrew had raised a brow, half in invitation and half in annoyance at the assumption, but Caleb didn't even notice. He'd been back out the door without a word. Now he drank bitter coffee from the tiny instant maker in the room and sat in the early morning sunlight. Caleb lay just a few feet away on the other side of the glass door, on the couch, where he'd spent the night. It shouldn't tick Andrew off, but it did. Lost and confused didn't suit Andrew's temperament. He had questions and wanted answers, but no one seemed to be inclined to give him any. Andrew wasn't sure how much of this had to do with shifter politics or whatever. It couldn't be a coincidence that Caleb had been stabbed with a silver needle. Someone knew that they were. That silver would poison Caleb. The thought of Caleb dying sent a tremble of fear through Andrew. What if he'd not found the needle? How much longer would Caleb have survived? From what Monty had said, Andrew didn't know how he'd managed to make it as long as he had. Without getting more answers, Andrew had no way of knowing how deadly and fast-acting silver usually was on their kind. Their kind. Andrew definitely wasn't one of them. He'd not felt this isolated and alone in a long time. He'd sworn never to go back, yet here he was. In trouble because of his brother, and sticking out like a sore thumb. He'd come full circle, left out and alone. Welcome to bitter, population Andrew. Determined to shake off his rotten mood, Andrew thought over what he did know. Alphonse's importance to both Caleb and the guards came to mind. Obviously, the man was powerful. As their leader, the alpha wolf, the others deferred to Alphonse. What would an attack on his son mean in their world? Alphonse and the guards had spent the night in the other room. The wolf's motto didn't need any explanation. Protect the alpha at all costs. Andrew's thoughts began to clarify. The attack against Caleb became more significant than some random attack in a club. If someone went after an alpha as powerful as Alphonse, they were declaring war. At least that's the way it seemed to Andrew. Hell, what did he know? The sliding door opened and Caleb stumbled outside. He squinted against the morning light before sitting next to Andrew on the chaise. Morning, he muttered as he ran his hand over his face. Hey. Caleb's dark hair stuck up in amusing tufts. Andrew watched him tangle his fingers through it. I'm cranky. Andrew laughed, hoping it didn't sound as forced and brittle to Caleb as it did to his own ears. Oh, really? Wake up on the wrong side of the couch? Caleb huffed and stretched out beside Andrew. The seat really wasn't big enough for two. They were pressed together from shoulder to ankle. Caleb rolled onto his side and threw an arm over Andrew's middle. Why are you up so early? 7:30 isn't that early. Besides, I'm in a strange place. Andrew paused and shrugged his shoulders. I'm a bit nervous, I guess. Don't be. It'll be okay. Easy for Caleb to say. He knew what was going on, what all this meant. Caleb stayed where he lay, snuggled up against Andrew. After a few minutes, his breathing evened out. Andrew had no idea how he could sleep in such an uncomfortable position, but decided to remember his role as Caleb's nurse. Caleb needed rest. Andrew reminded himself to take a look at the wound on Caleb's hip when he woke up. Monty appeared on the other side of the glass and drew Andrew's attention. Monty looked down at Caleb's sleeping form and rolled his eyes before holding up his coffee cup and pointing to it. Andrew nodded. Moments later, the guard reappeared with a steaming mug to replace the empty one Andrew had placed on the side table. "Go away," Caleb grumbled against Andrew's neck. "No can do. Got a lead on your mystery date, so I'm heading out to track him down." Caleb lifted his head and snarled at the bodyguard. "Don't call him that." "No?" Monty smirked. "Then we've got a lead on your random club bathroom hookup." "Asshole." Andrew sipped his coffee. The dynamics between Caleb and his father's guards puzzled him. Sometimes, Caleb appeared to be an extension of his father, the junior alpha, perhaps. Other times, he acted like one of the guys, joking and teasing them like they were his pals. This morning's interactions with Monty were a perfect example. They continued aggravating each other until Caleb stood up and laughed as he pushed the guard out of the way. Andrew stayed where he was and watched them make their way through the suite. The room was decorated in the chocolate browns and teals that had been popular a few years ago. Andrew liked the colors, found them soothing for the most part, but itched to be back at home where he felt comfortable sprawling out and relaxing. The mood here couldn't be any less. Caleb and Monty nitpicked at each other all the way back into the suite's small kitchen. Andrew followed Caleb and Monty inside after a few minutes to get another coffee infusion and found them arguing. "I'm going with you. That's final." Caleb's tone was more serious than Andrew had ever heard it, but Monty continued to shake his head. "It's not safe. You need to stay here with the alpha and your He broke off and turned to eye Andrew. Caleb flushed and turned to the room his father was in. He knocked twice on the door, and Alphonse opened it. The alpha wore another of his expensive suits, although he'd left off the jacket and tie. "You can go," Alphonse stated. He must have heard the entire conversation through the closed door. The werewolf's heightened senses would take some getting used to. Alphonse turned to Monty, who stood scowling with clenched fists. "Find the boy and bring him back here, quickly." Monty nodded and turned for the door. Caleb stared at his father for a long moment and nodded. Andrew wondered about the unspoken conversation. What had they communicated? Would he ever fit in with this bunch? Did he want to? Caleb spun around and stared at Andrew. Another unspoken conversation, and Andrew still had no clue. "I'll be back soon. Stay here with my dad, please." Andrew nodded. Where else could he go? Caleb took off out the door, and Alphonse leaned against the doorframe and watched him go. The alpha pushed away from his post and went to the small kitchen area, where he poured himself some coffee. He held the pot up for Andrew, so Andrew walked over to him and let his cup be refilled. "Yesterday must have frightened you," Alphonse said. Andrew shrugged. "Not really. A couple of times, but I knew Caleb wouldn't hurt me." "You knew that, did you?" Andrew's heart sped up, and blood rushed to his face. "I trust him." He turned away from the golden stare of the older man, but Alphonse stopped him with a hand to his shoulder. He turned back around, and Alphonse lifted a hand toward Andrew's face. "May I?" May you what?" Alphonse chuckled and lifted Andrew's chin with his fingers. "May I look at your neck?" Since he'd already done it, Andrew tilted his neck back further. "What is it with you guys and necks, anyway?" "It's part of our culture. I was checking to see if Caleb bit you." "Of course he didn't bite me. I thought he was going to there for a minute, but he didn't." "Really? And where did he almost bite you?" Andrew frowned. On my neck? Where you're looking?" "I thought you knew that, and that's why you were checking." "Oh, crap. If he bites me, do I turn into a wolf too? Is that what this is about?" Alphonse chuckled. "No, Andrew. It doesn't work that way. Shifters are born, not made. You watch too many movies." He probably did, but that still didn't explain why Alphonse was checking him for bite marks. "I'm so confused." "No doubt. May I smell you?" Andrew took a step back. "Can't you smell me from there?" 'Cause that's weird. Alphonse laughed again. I think I understand what my son sees in you. You are such a difficult thing. I've been told that before. I'll bet you have. If you're going to be spending more time with us, you need to learn what is acceptable and not. For instance, if an alpha asks to smell you, you comply. Otherwise, it could be seen as a challenge to my authority. Andrew gasped. What? I'm not challenging you. That's ridiculous. I know that, son. Now, may I smell your neck? For goodness sakes. Andrew arched his neck again, and Alphonse leaned in and sniffed. My son has more control than I realized. Alphonse leaned back and smiled. Control must be a really good thing for a shifter to have. It made sense. Finally, something Andrew could understand. He's really strong. And I don't just mean in his body. He's determined, you know. Oh, I do know. He usually gets what he wants. Stubborn boy. Andrew grinned. Hello, Pot. Meet Kettle. Alphonse chuckled. You are amusing, I'll give you that. And yes, my son is very much like me. Too much, some days. Alphonse, I know I'm not part of your family, or a pack, or whatever, but I'd really like it if you guys didn't push me out of this right now. I don't understand all that's going on, but it is my brother they have. As much as he drives me crazy, I don't want him to be hurt, or worse, because of this. Understood. And I'll do what I can. First, we need to discover who is behind this. I'm hoping this boy who hurt Caleb will be able to give us some information. But, Andrew, understand this. You are part of our pack now. Caleb chose you, revealed our secret to you. That means more than I think you understand. Andrew let out a breath and slumped against the counter. I don't understand anything at this point. Then trust me. I'm the Alpha. It's my job to take care of you. The thought made Andrew uncomfortable. He squirmed a bit, and Alphonse laid a hand on his arm. Accept that much, Andrew. I will do everything in my power to keep you from getting hurt. But what about my brother? Your brother is in quite a bit of trouble. Caleb seems to think this isn't the first time he's caused you harm. Andrew shrugged. Although true, the accusation made him uncomfortable. He resisted the urge to defend Danny's actions. And Danny is a selfish young man who almost got his brother killed from his stupidity. Don't make excuses for him, Andrew. I won't accept them. But nothing. I will do everything I can to keep your brother from coming to more harm. He will answer for his actions, though. Don't doubt that. What exactly does that mean? Alphonse stared at Andrew and arched a brow. Caleb must educate you on our ways. Yeah, well, Caleb left me here with you. Alphonse turned his head away as his shoulders shook with humor. For a man who is so very afraid, you don't hold back, do you? I can deal with being scared. I can't deal with all this confusion. Understood. Try to trust in Caleb and myself. That is all I can offer you at the moment. Now, let's order some room service while we wait on their return. The breakfast plates were long emptied and ready to go back down to the hotel kitchen by the time Caleb and Monty returned. A struggling young man stood between them. Monty dropped